Welcome back to the deep dive. Last time, we looked into how those early Germanic dialects really uh, set the stage for English.
Yeah, and you might think that's the whole story for English's roots, but, well, not quite. There was another huge wave
A
coming.
wave with battle axes, right?
Exactly. We're talking about the Vikings in England.
And this is way more than just the hit-and-run raids everyone pictures, although, yeah, those definitely happened.
Oh, absolutely. But it turned into something much bigger. We're talking settlement, actual rule, and this deep, deep mixing of people, cultures, and languages.
We've been digging through the sources you sent over, tracing the path from those first, frankly, terrifying attacks
Terrifying is the word.
to Viking territories being set up, Norse kings actually sitting on the English throne, and, well, the marks they left on the language and even the map.
So today's mission is really to get under the skin of this whole period. How did these Scandinavians go from being feared invaders to settlers?
And how did they create this thing called the Danelaw? And even end up ruling all of England for a bit.
And, of course, what did all that interaction do to the English language? That's the core of it.
Okay, so let's set the scene. We're talking late 8th century onwards.
That's right, late 8th to the 11th century, roughly. And initially, it was about raiding. Ships coming mainly from Denmark and Norway hitting coastal spots.
Especially the wealthy ones, the monasteries.
Precisely. Easy targets, lots of portable wealth. The sources are pretty graphic about raids like Lindisfarne in 793.
Yeah, Lindisfarne wasn't just some small church. It was a huge center of learning, wealth.
And bang, these raiders hit it hard.
Oh,
The
wow.
accounts talk about their ships appearing suddenly, those sleek, long ships.
The ones with the dragon heads.
Often, yeah, really distinctive. And then the warriors themselves, the chronicles call them heathens, wolves, landing fast, swords, spears, those famous big axes.
Brutal stuff. Plunder, killing monks, taking slaves. Jarrow Monastery got hit the next year, 794. Must have been terrifying for the Anglo-Saxons.
Utterly destabilizing. But then, as decades passed, something started to change around the mid-9th century.
How so?
Well, the raids didn't stop, but the strategy shifted. They started staying over winter, setting up camps.
Camps that became more permanent.
Exactly. It wasn't just about grabbing loot and leaving anymore.
So why the change? Why stick around?
A few things seem to be going on, based on the sources. Back in Scandinavia, maybe some population pressure, land running short.
Okay.
And England, especially the east and north, looked really good. Fertile land, great for farming.
So it went from theft to, well, wanting the whole farm.
Pretty much. The goal became land ownership, settlement, colonization, really.
Which leads us to something much bigger than raiding parties. 865 AD.
The Great Heathen Army, that's what the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle calls it. And it wasn't just a bigger raid, this was different.
How different?
It was huge, coordinated, led by figures the sagas and chronicles mention, like Ivar the Boneless, Halfdan Ragnarsson. Their aim wasn't just plunder, it was conquest.
Conquest of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms.
All four of them. East Anglia, Northumbria, Mercia, and Wessex. That was the ambition.
And they nearly pulled it off, didn't they? Quite quickly, too.
Astonishingly quickly. Within maybe 10 years, they'd smashed through East Anglia, taken over Northumbria, broken up Mercia. Huge swaths of the north and east were under their control.
Leaving only Wessex.
Only Wessex, hanging on under Alfred the Great. His fight against the army, especially their leader Guthrum, is legendary.
He had setbacks, though, right? Had to hide out in the marshes.
He did, yeah. It was a desperate struggle. But he rallied, came back, and eventually defeated Guthrum.
The Battle of Edington, 878.
That's the one. But crucially, Alfred's victory didn't mean the Vikings just packed up and left England entirely.
No. So what was the deal?
It led to a negotiated peace, a treaty that basically said, okay, you guys keep the territory you've already conquered.
Seriously, formal recognition.
Yep. The Treaty of Wedmore around 886 is key here. It drew a line on the map, more or less.
Creating the Danelaw.
Exactly, the Danelaw. This whole region, roughly the eastern half of England north of London, covering about 14 shires, according to some sources.
And what made it the Danelaw?
Because Danish law, Danish customs held sway there. It wasn't just military control. It was an area governed differently from Anglo-Saxon Wessex, a formal, institutionalized Viking territory within England.
Wow, so two Englands, essentially side by side, legally speaking. For how long?
The formal Danelaw period lasted until about 954 AD.
What happened then?
Alfred's successors, the kings of Wessex, gradually fought back and managed to bring those areas back under the control of the English crown. Reunified, sort of.
Oh, but that wasn't the end of Viking rulers in England, was it?
Not by a long shot. That sets us up for the next really mind-bending phase, when Danish kings ruled the whole kingdom.
Right. This is the early 11th century, 1013 to 1042.
Exactly, the sort of North Sea Empire period. And it kicks off with Sweyn Forkbeard.
Canute the Great's father.
The very same.
Yeah.
Sweyn actually conquered England in 1013, forced the Anglo-Saxon king Ethelred, nicknamed the Unready, into exile.
So a Dane was officially king of England, the ultimate culmination of all those earlier incursions.
It was. Although Sweyn didn't get to enjoy it for long, he died just weeks later.
Ah, but his son, Canute,
Hmm.
he picked up the mantle.
He did. Canute, born around 995, had his father's ambition and, frankly, maybe more political skill. He had to fight for it, though. Ethelred came back, then died. Canute fought his son.
Edmund Ironside.
Right. Canute finally defeated the Anglo-Saxon resistance in 1016, became king of all England.
And the sources suggest he was pretty smart about how he ruled, not just a blunt conqueror.
Incredibly astute. Look at his marriage in 1017. He marries Emma of Normandy.
Who was Ethelred the Unready's widow, the previous king he'd essentially overthrown.
Exactly. It seems counterintuitive, but it was genius.
Why? What did that achieve?
Several things. One, it linked him to the old dynasty, gave him a bit more legitimacy. Two, and this is crucial, Emma's kids with Ethelred were exiled in Normandy. Marrying Emma helped neutralize them as a threat. It built bridges with the powerful dukes of Normandy, who, let's not forget, were themselves originally Vikings who'd settled in France generations before under Rollo. Canute knew his history and his politics.
Clever. So he secured his flank, basically.
And he didn't just throw out all the old ways either. He was pragmatic. In 1020, his law code actually incorporated existing Anglo-Saxon customary laws alongside Danish ones. A blend.
And his power wasn't just limited to England.
Oh no. He became king of Denmark too in 1018 after his brother died. Then he went and conquered Norway in 1028. He even made the king of Scotland submit to him.
So England, Denmark, Norway, bits of Scotland and Sweden, that's the North Sea Empire.
That's it. A huge northern European power bloc, run from England largely. And it was prosperous, stable under Canute. He was a major figure on the European stage.
Didn't he marry his daughter off to the Holy Roman Emperor's son?
He did indeed. Gunhilda married Henry, Conrad II's son. Shows the kind of diplomatic clout he had.
And there's that story about him and the sea.
Ah, the tide story. Yeah, the sources tell it. Apparently, his courtiers were laying on the flattery thick, saying he commanded everything, even nature.
Bit much, even for a king.
So Canute, to teach them a lesson about the limits of kingly power versus, God or nature, takes his throne down to the beach.
And orders the tide to stop.
He does. And, surprise, surprise, the tide keeps coming in. It's often told as a story about his piety or his understanding of his own limitations. A powerful guy, but realistic.
But this impressive empire didn't last long after him, did it?
No, sadly for his dynasty. It basically fell apart within about a decade of his death in 1035.
Yeah.
Gone well before William the Conqueror showed up in 1066.
Still, that period, both the Danelaw and Canute's reign, must have been times of intense mixing between the Scandinavians and the Anglo-Saxons.
Absolutely crucial periods for that. Deep cultural and linguistic mingling.
It wasn't just people living separately in the same land then. What helped them actually integrate?
Well, a really big one was religion. Remember, Alfred defeated Guthrum. Part of the deal in the Treaty of Wedmore was that Guthrum and his men converted to Christianity.
Ah, so the Vikings and the Danelaw became Christian.
Many did, yes, around 878 onwards. That was huge. It removed the pagan barrier. The Anglo-Saxons were already Christian. Conversion made intermarriage easier, social interactions smoother, just broke down a major wall.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
The languages themselves, this is key. Old English and Old Norse weren't like, say, English and Chinese. They were related.
Both Germanic languages.
Exactly. Old English from the West Germanic branch, Old Norse from the North Germanic branch. Think maybe like Spanish and Portuguese today, or maybe Dutch and German, related.
So they could sort of understand each other?
To a degree, yes. They shared a lot of basic vocabulary, words for house, man, land, winter, summer. Communication wasn't impossible, especially for everyday things.
And that constant contact,
Yeah.
especially in the Danelaw people living together, trading, farming, marrying, that must have had a massive effect on the language.
Massive. And it wasn't just swapping words, though that happened a lot. It seems to have sped up changes that were maybe already starting in Old English grammar.
How so? What kind of changes?
Old English was what we call highly inflected. Words changed their endings to show their job in a sentence who did what to whom. Like Latin or modern German, lots of case endings.
Right, so you wouldn't just say the dog bites the man. The words dog and man would have different endings depending on who's biting and who's being bitten.
Precisely. Now, Old Norse also had inflections, but maybe slightly fewer or simpler ones than Old English at the time. And when you have two groups speaking similar but different languages trying to communicate constantly.
You simplify. Drop the complicated bits.
Often, yeah.
Yeah.
Those tricky endings that aren't absolutely essential for getting the basic meaning across tend to get smoothed out or lost. And we see Old English grammar simplifying quite rapidly during and after this period.
Losing those case endings.
Losing many of them, yeah. Starting to rely more on word order, who comes first in the sentence, and prepositions like to, from, with, to show relationships between words.
Any specific grammar points we got from Norse?
Oh, a huge one. Our standard way of making nouns plural by adding s, like boats, stones, kings. That s ending comes straight from Old Norse. It replaced a whole bunch of different, complicated Old English plural endings.
Wow, that's fundamental.
It really is. The sources also mention things like the increased use of verb phrases to be doing something, which was common in Old Norse, though they also float the idea that maybe Celtic languages influenced that too. It's complex.
But the most obvious impact for us today is probably the words themselves, right? The loanwords.
Absolutely. English has more loanwords from French and Latin overall, thanks to the Normans and later history. But the kind of words we got from Old Norse, they're different. They're core.
Core, like everyday words.
Totally everyday. Really basic high-frequency stuff. Think about words like anger, birth, cake, call, cast, cut, die, egg, get, give, if, knife, law, list, low, odd, raise, root, scale, score, skate, skin, skill, take, there, them, their, thralls, ugly, want, weak, window, wing.
Okay, wow. That's a lot of very common words. They, them, they're even pronouns.
Even basic pronouns. Old English had its own third-person plural pronouns, but they started with H and sounded confusingly similar to the singular ones. They, them, they're clearer, and they just took over.
It's amazing how these words got embedded. Did they replace Old English words or live alongside them?
Both happened. Sometimes the Norse word won out, like egg beat the Old English egg. Sometimes both survived, but maybe specialized in meaning. Old English had cert, Old Norse had skirta. We got shirt and skirt from the two.
Fascinating. And this legacy isn't just in the dictionary, it's on the map too.
Literally written on landscape, especially in that old Danelaw area. Place names are a huge clue. Hundreds of places end in "-a",
Which means?
farmstead or village in Old Norse. Think Derby, Grimsby, Whitby, Rugby. Loads of them, over 700 apparently.
And other endings.
Thorpe is another big one. Means outlying farm or secondary settlement, like Scunthorpe, Linthorpe, Gawthorpe. These names tell you exactly where Norse speakers settled down and built communities.
And it extends to people's names too.
Definitely. Surnames, especially. That very common English pattern of adding son to a father's name, Johnson, Jackson, Henderson, Stevenson, that's a direct borrowing from Scandinavian naming traditions.
So when you pull it all together, the Viking Age in England, it's just so much more than raids.
So much more. It's settlement on a massive scale. It's the creation of the Danelaw with its own laws. It's even Danish kings ruling a huge North Sea empire from England for a time.
And running through all of that is this constant process of cultural and linguistic mixing.
Driven by things like conversion to Christianity, the fact the languages were related enough to communicate, and just the sheer necessity of everyday life together.
And the English we speak today is just full of the results. Core vocabulary, place names, surnames, even the simplification of our grammar owes a debt to that period.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how cultures interact, even ones that start in conflict. How that blending creates something new.
Yeah, new identities, new languages.
And maybe, just maybe, that blend in England, influenced by this seafaring, trading, expanding Viking culture, maybe that fed into the later English drive for exploration and expansion too, a kind of sea culture DNA.
That's a really interesting thought to chew on. And speaking of Viking culture, the sources mentioned something else unique. They had their writing system. Runes.
Ah, yes, runes. Definitely not just an alphabet. They were tied up with meaning, power, symbolism.
Which sounds like a perfect topic for our next deep dive. We'll be getting into exactly that. Carved in battle axes and stone. Viking Age runes, more than just writing. A symbol of power.
Sounds fascinating. Definitely tune in for that one.